of. It's the evil and the ugliness of people's hearts these days is everywhere.
This is Franky Rose's Think Tank. Here's your host, Franky Rose.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Think Tank. So, Rex Heuermann has been indicted on 2 more Long Island deletings. Let's check this out. This is the full press conference.
Happening right now, the Suffolk County DA is speaking on the new charges brought against the Gilgo Beach murder suspect. Rex Heuermann has now been indicted in the killings of 2 additional women, Jessica Taylor of Poughkeepsie and Sandra Castilla of Queens. Let's listen in.
Sandra, who?
Well, good morning. Thanks everyone for coming and dealing with our logistical issues in the rain.
Turn it up, guys.
We're here today to announce additional charges in the case against the defendant Rex Heuermann. Obviously, at the onset, I will say these are just allegations. The indictment has just been filed. This is a case, court proceeding, and each and every one of these allegations have got to be proven in court, and we certainly look forward to doing just that. Today, as you've just seen, the District Attorney's Office filed a superseding indictment charging the defendant with 2 additional murders. Those charges pertain to the 1993 murder of Sandra Castilla and the 2003 murder of Jessica Taylor. So that's in addition to the previously charged murders of Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Lordeman, and Amber Costello, which occurred in 1997. 1999, June of 2010, and September of 2010, respectively. So my intention here today is to discuss those charges, discuss the contents of the bail letter, and then turn it all over to you all for questions. But before I do that, before I discuss the indictment and the developments in the case, I want to thank our law enforcement partners, many of whom are here today. First and foremost, I want to thank the Suffolk County Police Department. My understanding is Commissioner Waring was unavailable today. I spoke with Rob, but he certainly brought a contingent of Suffolk County PD to represent his office. We have Deputy Police Commissioner Kevin Catalina. We have Chief of Detectives Daryl Simmons. We have Deputy Chief Stan Grodsky. We have, and then we have the commanding officer of the Major Crimes Unit, which includes the Homicide Unit, Sean Barron. So we want to thank all of them for their partnership. We want to thank the Homicide Unit for their continued efforts in this case. We have the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office here again. Spoke with Sheriff Toulon. He's traveling out.
Okay, guys. So what's interesting here is I don't think I've heard the name Sandra Castilla from Queens. So unreal.
State, so he couldn't make it.
Wow.
It's my understanding that Undersheriffs Steve Kios and Keith Taylor are here. Certainly want to thank them for their assistance as well. With the New York State Police, we have Major Stephen Udis, as well as Lieutenant Ken Gine. And again, we thank them not only for their presence here today, but more importantly, for their partnership in this case. We have the FBI, Supervising Special Agent Don Ansbacher is here. I want to thank the FBI for their continued assistance in this case. And then I don't believe they're present, but we have we want to thank the United States Secret Service for their assistance in this case.
Wow.
I want to thank the Suffolk County Crime Lab. I know they're not here, but their work has been tireless and instrumental, and we are really very appreciative to them. I especially want to thank the K9 units from the New York State Police, from the Suffolk County Police, and from the NYPD, who came out a couple of weeks ago, and in very difficult conditions. They really did a fabulous job helping us to search an area of interest to us. and they went above and beyond. So again, I want to thank them. I frequently neglect to thank my own team, so I'm going to take the opportunity to thank them. We have, Chief Zachary's. We have. I want to thank them. I want to thank our ADAs, many of whom are working on this case. You heard from Nick Santa Martino. We've got Larry Opizo. We've got Andrew Lee. We've got Michelle Haddad. We've got a whole host of ADAs that have really been instrumental in us. Our investigators, our analysts, really fantastic work that they've done. I want to thank the victims' families, many of whom are here today, not only on the new charges, but for the original Gilgo 4. And this is what this case is about. We don't ever forget that. This case is about the victims and their families, and hopefully providing them with that small measure of closure. And the families have been nothing short of incredible. The way that they continue to support their loved ones and each other is really inspiring to us and really helps us to keep coming in and working this case as aggressively as we've been doing. This case is a true collaboration, and again, mentioning all of those partners, without the contribution of any one of those partners, our ability to do this case would have been severely compromised. So again, I know I mentioned a lot of names. I know I went through a lot of agencies, but I just don't do that because it's the polite thing to do. I do it because it's the right thing to do, because they've really helped us instrumentally and will continue to help us going forward. Now, I'll just, before I get into the individual murders, the two new charges, what I want to talk about is at the time of the initial arraignment of the three out of the four Gilgo 4, and then at the superseding arraignment on the charges pertaining to Maureen Brainerd Barnes, and the Gilgo 4 was completed. At that time, we said that we were going to continue to investigate this case, that the grand jury with regard to the Gilgo 4 is over, but the case continues. The criminal prosecution continues, but the investigation continues, and that investigation has been expanded. The investigation has been expanded both to the bodies that were found on Gilgo and beyond. That's what we said. And I think that has come to fruition today with these two new cases or new charges. First off, with regard to Jessica Taylor, that her body was recovered on July 26, 2003, off of just west of Halsey Manor Road in Manorville. She was found on her back. She was decapitated, and her hands and arms were severed just below the elbows. Notably, her tattoo that she had been obliterated with a sharp object. 8 years later, her arms and skull were found on Ocean Parkway. Those remains were found on the same side of the road on the Ocean Parkway as the Gilgo 4. They were found less than a mile away from the remains of the Gilgo 4, and all of the 5 remains were located within 50 feet of the roadway. And I think you see that the graphic on page 5 of our bail document illustrates that. Jessica Taylor was last seen July 19th in New York City. She was working as a sex worker. We know from from our investigation, from a number of financial records and other records, that the defendant, Rex Heuermann, was in New York City on July 19th. Jessica Taylor last spoke to her mom on July 21st. And less than that was about 8:41 p.m. And less than 2 hours later, her phone call made its last outgoing call. And we heard no more from Jessica or from her phone. The family alerted law enforcement on July 25th when she failed to return to her home for her mom's birthday. And then shortly thereafter, on July 26th, Jessica's body was recovered. At that time, the Suffolk County PD did canvass. They spoke to witnesses, and the witnesses had observed the night before, about 13 hours prior to the 911 call, they saw a dark-colored pickup truck backed up in the vicinity of where, off of Halsey Manor Road, where Jessica's body was eventually recovered. Computer activity by the defendant, which we were able to access through our search warrants, indicated that 2 days later, on July 28th, he accessed a Newsday article with regard to information on the case, with regard to the police looking for information on the case. That search was erased, but we were able to recover it. 1 day later, on July 29th, notably, the defendant was seeking to purchase a new Chevy Avalanche truck, notwithstanding the fact that he already had a dark colored Chevy Avalanche truck, which was only approximately 4 months old at the time. The Chevy Avalanche truck, which we've been discussing all along, is dark colored. His internet search related to the acquisition of the same Chevy Avalanche truck, but this time in white or bright blue, bright colored truck, completely different from the dark colored truck that he had been riding in. And again, once again, that purchase with regard to the new trucks, that was attempted to be avoided. We spoke, and Nick Santamartino did the bail application, so I don't want to repeat all that Nick said, but with regard to the hairs found in this case, Jessica Taylor was found laying atop a surgical drape. A male hair was found between the body and the drape. That was recovered back in 2003. In 2023, we brought that hair was brought to the mitochondrial testing lab for mitochondrial DNA analysis, and was able to, the results of that was able to exclude 99.96% of the population, but not Rex Heuermann, the defendant. Then again, later in 2024, we brought to a second lab for nuclear DNA testing. And once again, the result was the defendant could not be excluded as the donor of that hair, and it's 1.837 times 10 to the 603rd power more likely that it came to, that it matched the defendant or someone matching the defendant's DNA profile than a member of the population at large. And that number, just so it's 1.837 times 10 to the 603rd power. So what you do is you take that 1.837 and you move that decimal point over 63 places and add zeros. That's the number. That number doesn't exist. It's so big. Among other things that we were able to establish with regard to the murder of Jessica Taylor was, once again, family travel. We were able to determine that at the time of the disappearance and death of Jessica Taylor, once again, the defendant's family was out of the state. They were staying at a resort known as Smuggler's Notch in Vermont. We were able to corroborate that information through witness statements, photos, and phone and financial records. In addition, there was a hard drive that backed up to a Palm Pilot, which was the defendant's date book. And in that, and again, this is chronicled in the bail application, but in that date book, it's indicated that his wife is in Virginia at Smugs from July 20th through July 27th, and that's page 14 of the bail document. With regard to the 1993 discovery of Sandra Castilla, again, on November 20th, 1993, two individuals while hunting in that wooded area of Southampton in the vicinity of Old Fish Cove Road in Northsea discovered her body. She was lying on her back with her arms outstretched over her head. Her legs were uncovered and her shirt was pressed over her head. The victim suffered numerous sharp force injuries, 25 in all, which we believe were post-mortem. And these were injuries to her face, torso, breasts, left thigh, and in her vaginal area. Once again, we had hairs recovered from Sandra Castilla. This is chronicled in the bail application. There were two hairs from Sandra Castilla's remains that are of particular significance in this case. One was a female hair that was recovered from the victim's right arm, and one male hair that was recovered from a tape lift of one of the shirts that the victim was wearing that was pushed above her head. In 2014, about 10 years ago, the two hairs plus another female hair, which were found on Castilla, were sent to an outside mitochondrial DNA lab for testing. And at that time, John Bitroff was excluded as the donor of those three hairs. Those once the task force began investigating Gilgo and related cases, those hairs were retested in 2023 and 2024 and compared with the defendant's known sample from the buccal swab that we obtained. Regarding that male hair, the mitochondrial DNA profile developed from that male hair on the victim Castilla and the profile developed from the defendant's buccal swab are match, and specifically at a rate that would exclude 99.96% of the North American population.
You guys, they have this guy bang on. So I don't think this is going to be the end of his victims. I have a funny feeling we have lots more to go. They have a lot more information that I actually knew, which is great to hear. They got him, guys. They got him.
And defendant Heuermann cannot be, therefore, cannot be excluded as the contributor. On March of 2024, that same hair or an extract therefrom was brought to the same outside lab for nuclear DNA testing. And once again, the results came back, and which found it was 4.347 times 10 to the 332 power more likely to have come from a person genetically identical to Rex Heuermann than from an unrelated individual. So that's 4.347, and then you move that decimal point over 332 times to get the odds. Again, an astronomically large number. Regarding the female hair, prior to with regard to the female hair, one of the female hairs that was recovered on Ms. Castilla, prior to Ms. Castilla's disappearance, the defendant had been living with a female individual at his home in Massapequa Park. The female individual lived with the defendant at his current residence through the summer and into the early fall of 1993, and vacated the premises approximately 2 months or so prior to Ms. Castilla's death in 1993. Once we got those two female hairs, once we knew of those two female hairs' existence, we went out and obtained a DNA profile, a buccal swab from this female. And that DNA profile that we obtained from the female's buccal swab, we sent it to the mitochondrial testing lab. And again, it was able to exclude 99.98% of the North American population as the contributor of said hair, but it could not exclude the female who was living with Rex Heuermann. Again, we brought that same DNA and extract to the nuclear DNA testing, and the female's hair was tested and compared with the female hair that was recovered on the victim Castilla, and it was found to be 4.578 times 10 to the 1040th power more likely have come from a person genetically identical to the female witness who was living with Rex Heuermann in 1993, shortly before Ms. Castilla's death, than from an unrelated individual. Again, that's 4.578, and you move that decimal point over 1,040 places, and that's the number. There was an additional female hair that was recovered in 2014. That was recovered, that was compared to both the female living with Mr. Heuermann and the defendant, and we could not get a match on that, and that remains unidentified, that female hair. So we have those DNA results, and again, we were able to establish, similar to all the other cases, that at or around the time of Ms. Castilla's disappearance and murder, Rex Heuermann was living alone at the house in Massapequa Park and had unfettered access to the house, and no one else was living with him at the time. So now I want to discuss some of the newly discovered digital evidence in the case. Before I discuss that, I just wanted to clarify some of the things that we've been talking about in our earlier press conferences. You were asked I was asked specifically about smart devices and digital devices that were recovered from the home and business of the defendant in connection with this case. So I just want to catalog that for you so you get a sort of flavor of what it was. We've recovered 15 different types of cameras. We've recovered 27 computers. We've recovered 58 internal hard drives. We recovered 22 external hard drives or solid drives. We recovered 46 cell phones. We recovered 9 Wi-Fi routers, 44 SD micro cards, which are like jump routers, 17 tablets, 42 USB devices, 8 laptops, 50 hotel cards, 4 GPS devices, 11 music devices, 36 SIM cards, 33 miscellaneous items, and 647 CD, floppy disks, or VSH or miscellaneous tapes. Again, in the months subsequent to the arrest, we've been endeavoring through our own office and with the help of the Secret Service to analyze that massive amount of data. Analysis of those devices has revealed certainly that Heuermann had a significant collection of violent, bondage, and torture pornography, which was dating back to 1994, and that material was very similar to the condition that the 2 latest victims were left in. In addition to that, it is alleged that the pornographic images that were accessed by Heuermann are consistent with the crime scenes of both Sandra Garcia and Jessica Taylor. Now, as part of our processing of the electronic devices, the task force discovered a Microsoft Word document entitled HK 2002 through 2004. That was discovered on a laptop in unallocated space, meaning there was an attempt to erase that document. But as most forensic experts know, that even when a document is erased on a device, it is the user could no longer access that document, but forensic experts using particular software can retrieve it, and this document was retrieved in this case. It was a locally created draft, which means the document itself was created on the laptop. It wasn't downloaded from the internet. The document was modified. It was originally created in 2000, and it was overwritten a number of times and modified between 2001 and 2002. Now, as alleged in the bail application, the task force believes that this is a plan document, and it was utilized by Heuermann to methodically blueprint and plan out his kills with excruciating detail. We allege that this document evinces the defendant's intent in committing the charged crimes, that his intent was specifically to locate these victims, to hunt them down, and to bring them under his control and to kill them. His motivations, meticulous planning, and clear intent is obvious. His intent was nothing short but to murder these victims. And we allege that the methodology, that the exact method by which these murders were committed in excruciating detail in that document is in some cases identical to the methodology to murder the 6 victims in this case. Now, I don't want to speak further on the document. I believe the document speaks for itself. So if anybody has any questions about the document, I'd be more than willing to answer them. But before turning it over for questioning, I want to reiterate, right from the very beginning of this case, from the onset of the case, the first indictment, we said that the case was not over. We said we were going to continue to investigate the case of the Gilgo Four and find more evidence. We've done that. We've said that we were going to expand the investigation both on Gilgo and off, and to investigate new cases. We've done that, and that's resulted in the 2 new charges that you see here today. So that's what we've done. That's what we've continued to do. And, my office, along with our partners, are not going to stop. This case continues. So with that, I will turn it over for questions.
I had a question about.
We'll just go, if we go right to left.
About the plan.
I didn't see you down there.
So I'm just wondering, why is he not being charged with first-degree murder? Because of this web document that he had, planning these murders on, why is it second degree and not first degree? Doesn't that premeditated?
So first degree, I mean, there are a number of different charging theories you could use for murder in the first degree. One of them is if you charge a murder within a specific period of time. I think it's 18 months. So if you look at, so we have 3 murder 1 charges and 6 murder 2 charges. And if you look at the time of the deaths, Sandra Castilla, 93, Jessica Taylor, 2003, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, 2007, Melissa Bartholomew, 2009, Megan Wardeman, 2010, and Amber Costello, 2010. Those last 3, Bartholomew, Costello, and Wardeman, fit within that period of time. So we could charge murder 1. The other ones, unfortunately, fall outside. So we're unable to bring that charge with regard to those, the other 5.
What?
The other 3 victims. So that's why it's different. Just sort of the way New York State law is.
That makes no sense.
I wanted to ask about how this expands the search now, because now with this indictment, the earliest murder now changes to 1993, which gives it many more years than we had before. So how does this expand the search? How are you guys expanding this to find out who other victims that are possibly involved?
Well, I think first and foremost, it expands the information for the public and the media. It doesn't change anything for us. We were, I think in March of this year, we learned of this document. We have been investigating other things. So again, my confidence in saying that we were going to move off of the Gilgo 4 to the new bodies and off of Gilgo itself was based upon my knowledge of the investigation. So that's something that we've been doing for a while now. It's just sort of become publicly known.
How do you know, Sade?
We have no information with regard to that.
So just piggybacking off of that, so the alleged murders happening between 93 and 2010, just how alarming is this sweeping timeline you're looking at?
Well, I think this whole case in general is alarming. And I think it underscores that which we already knew, that we have an individual who we are alleging, and again, these are allegations, meticulously planned and executed 6 separate murders. So that in and of itself speaks for itself.
And there are other victims named in the court documents. Are more charges on the way?
So we're going to continue. Again, we're going to continue to investigate, and we'll talk about whatever other investigation we're undergoing when and if we bring those charges.
And Mr. Tierney, in your document, you mentioned the words torture, bondage, violence, and also Stockholm syndrome. Is there any evidence to reveal that perhaps Rex Heuermann took these women or any of them captive in his home, attempted to brainwash them, put him under his
Well, that's what that document contains, and again, that speaks for itself. We'll make arguments with regard to that, and at the trial. The specific reference to Stockholm syndrome, that pertains to a book, Mindhunter, by a former FBI profiler, John Douglas. His name escaped me for a moment. And so we know there are specific page references to that book and stuff such as a sexual substitution, torture, and also Stockholm syndrome. And our argument, it's our allegation that the defendant was referencing that Mindhunter book not to gain insight into his own behavior, to modify or change it, but rather to use it as a means of improving his methodology and avoid capture by the authorities.
Sir, what about Valerie Mack? I know she, I believe, was found out in Manorville in a similar way that she was murdered.
So you have, and if you go back to that document, they talk about DS or dump sites, Mill Road, Halsey Manor Road, and Mill Road. It intersects with each other. So, and if you look at the method of the crime scene, very similar to Jessica Taylor. That's what we could say now. We'll continue to work the case, and if we're able to develop more information and get to the point where we can charge it, we'll talk about it. You had a real question?
Yes, I was wondering, you mentioned that book. Did Heuermann have that book in his?
So he references specific page numbers in the doc, or specific page numbers are represented in the document, which match up to a particular edition of the Mindhunter book. The Mindhunter book was not found in Heuermann's house, but there was another serial killer book written by John Douglas found in his house, and I think that's in the bail document.
I just think, obviously, you probably knew this already, but uncovering a lot of new details that we didn't know as far as dismemberment, that he was younger when he allegedly killed, that, of course, this document is explosive. Just talk to me, looking at the bigger picture profile of a serial killer, what was investigators, your thoughts when you were uncovering these new sort of details that?
Yeah, we have no thoughts. We look at the evidence and we follow the evidence. We know that criminals in general, people in general, their modus operandi change through the course of their life. Obviously there was no dismemberment with regard to the original Gilgo 4, but there is with regard to, unfortunately, Ms. Taylor. So, it's just, and again, everyone says, are you expanding the investigation? And we're doing it under the auspices of the Gilgo Task Force. But each new case that we look at, each new crime scene we look at it independent of everything, and then we make a determination. Where does that evidence leads us? Does it lead us to one particular suspect or another particular suspect? But we don't, get a list and say, okay, we're gonna automatically assume that certain people committed certain crimes. That's not the way to do it. That's not the way we do it. We look at and again, in the bail document, you talk about, if you want to know, and this is from John Douglas's book that the document quotes, if you want to know who the painter is, look at the painting. And that is something that Douglas used to tell his investigators. And that pertains specifically to, if you want to know who committed the crime, look at the crime scene and the condition of the victim. And again, if you do that in this case, we would allege that the crime scene and the victims match very much with a lot of first off, the document that we found, and also a lot of the defendant's internet activities and the bondage and torture type of pornography that he was interested in obsessively searching.
Do you believe at this point that the murders were committed in his house? And did you also talk about the note he put in his in that document that was referenced in court?
I'm familiar with the note. I'm sorry.
There was I thought the ADA talked about something about, he said, if you do certain things equals more playtime.
Oh, okay. So yeah. So that is referenced. What is the specific quote? Okay, more rest, more playtime. And so basically, what he's talking about is, well, what the allegation and what we would allege is the more rested, the participants are, the more you can get done. And he also talks about the document also talks about crime scene, and if you're sleepy and spending too much time in a crime scene, or your lack of sleep, your chances of making mistakes increase. So again, there's a lot of evincing of intent in that document.
And what about where these murders took place? Any?
So there's, under some of the considerations was in the document, it writes about tape not good, use push pins. And then once we received that document, we went back into the house and looking at the paneling in the downstairs basement area, we were able to look at it through infrared light. We were to establish a cordon off area where adhesive had been placed. So we're going to make certain arguments with regard to that at the time of trial. We also found an area where there were push pins into the drop ceiling.
Does he make any specific references to victims in the manifesto?
There's a T1, a T1 and T2. We would argue that stands for target 1, target 2. Target 1, it says Megan with a question mark, and target 2, it says black, and then in parentheses unknown, I believe. You could look at the bail document. That pertains to specific victims. If you look at the timing of it, it wouldn't seem to pertain to Megan Waterman because it's too early in time. There is also a reference to phone numbers of potential victims. We've searched, and we usually block out our phone numbers. We kept that in the document because we've come to an impasse with regard to those phone numbers. So if any members of the public have information with regard to those phone numbers, we would certainly be receptive to receive that.
So Valerie Mack, her death was mentioned twice in this latest bail document. Is Rex officially a suspect in Valerie Mack's death?
I think that would be fair to say.
And is it Mill Road where her remains were found?
Yes. Valerie Mack was. If you go down, you have Halsey Manor Road, and then Mill Road is like further, like as you said, away from the expressway, I believe, or the exit to the expressway. But in that same area, and Valerie Mack was a little bit further into the woods.
Ray, have you found any evidence at all about what he might have been up to in the last decade or so? Or did he just stop in 2010? How many other missing persons cases or unsolved crimes do you now have to look at, given where you are?
So the quick answer to that, yes, we have. We're still developing that, and obviously, none of that is actionable. And with regard to the missing cases, we're looking at all of them, and but we're looking at them not necessarily in the context of any particular defendant, including this one. We're looking at them separate and apart as missing cases, and with the universe of information that we have, not only in this case but other cases, how can we work towards solving some of these cold cases?
That's 30 years.
Yes.
Did the new search of North Sea uncover any evidence that has helped the case?
So I would say that, it was, as I've said all along, it's a necessary investigative step. It's a huge area, and we felt that we needed to do that at some point in time. We wanted to do it before the summer, and the brush got real thick. So we didn't know logistically how we were going to do it. We knew it was going to be difficult, but you don't not do something because it's difficult. And again, fortunately, our partners in the New York State Police, the Suffolk County Police as always, and the NYPD, their canine units went out and they did a fantastic job. We have so much gratitude to them for helping us out, but no new bodies were found.
Just following up on Greg's question, do you believe both the search going on in the basement with what you found in the manifesto, that the basement was a location where the crimes could have been committed?
So again, it doesn't matter what I believe. It matters what we can prove. This is, a significant investigative step. This was a significant investigative finding, and we'll continue to develop those things. We'll get to you next. I'm sorry. Could you say that again? Whoever said what they said? Oh, sorry.
I was just wondering, in the basement, I know
Yeah.
there was the new search. Were there any specific findings that could relate to actual blood, hair, human remains of any kind in the
Well,
basement?
as we've said all along, if you look at the DNA evidence and the trace evidence that we've done, it doesn't happen overnight. So there's additional testing that we're undergoing. We just have to see the results of that. Well, we always see suspicious things, but in any case. But is it a stain of something benign, or is it an investigatively significant stain? Only our forensic scientists can tell that after a lot of work.
Share any of the trophies that you found from.
Well, we in our bail letter, and we're pretty much constrained by our bail letter to what we can publicly disclose. We found other information. which will be disclosed at the time of trial. So we're not gonna get into it, and that's not to say they exist. We're just not gonna get into it. We can't. Ethically, I'm really enjoying talking about it. Could you?
Can you tell us when the document on the laptop was first discovered, and is that what prompted the research of the house recently?
Again, in any effective investigation, it's never just one thing. Certainly that was something that was significant and led us in among other things in that direction. That document, I believe, we recovered it in March 7th of this year. So fairly recently, and certainly given the history of the sprawling history of this case.
And you said he had a lot of images and videos of torture porn on his devices. Were any of them his own victims?
We saw no evidence of that.
Could you speak about his profile? Like, was one set of murders different from another set, and does that indicate that he was sort of changing his tactics over the years, or is this all consistent when you look at all the evidence so far?
Well, I think if you look at a macro view or a micro view, these are young women tragically lost their lives and were murdered as a result of a person who meticulously planned their murders. If you look at the earlier murders as opposed to the later murders, it does appear that there was some changes. Exactly what happened with regard to the Gilgo 4, we're foreclosed about knowing a lot of that stuff because they were skeletonized. Jessica and Sandra were more recently found, so we were able to glean more information from the scene. So, I guess it just depends what your perspective is on with regard to all that.
The March 7th discovery of the Word document, the evidence that caused the second search of the house.
Well, as I think I previously, it was a impetus, but in any good investigation, there's usually a number of different things that cause that. I would say it was a significant one, and it was also an impetus to go back out into those areas and search with the dogs. And Manorville and North Sea and every place else we went.
With allegations that happened probably in 93, it could open the possibility of other murders like Karen Brigata or other people having killed.
So as we said, Karen Brigata, her remains were found partially in Jones Beach and partially in I think by Atlantic Beach by across from Blue Point on Fire Island. So all those cases, every who was tragically murdered in Suffolk County, they're in play.
Trial, is there like a cutoff point where you're just gonna try the 6, or you're just gonna keep going and eventually put them on trial?
So we're not gonna stop. We can't stop. We owe that to the victims. That's the least we can do. So we understand we have a court case. We understand we'll go forward with that, but we're not going to stop. So however that works, however we need to do that, we're going to do it. We have a great team. We have a great team of investigators. We have a great team of prosecutors, and you do what you have to do in this business. We will get it done. It's daunting. There's a lot, but we'll get it done.
Are you still going through those dozens of digital devices?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's like just reading off just gives, and a lot of them are encrypted, so that when you have an encrypted device, that attempt to get in is ongoing. You're trying to crack the code, so to speak. So that's an ongoing effort.
Has there been any attempt?
I'm not going to discuss. I'm not going to discuss that again because my speculation, my thoughts don't matter. What I can prove in court, speak through an indictment, I will talk about these 6 because, these are allegations at this point. We look forward to proving those allegations, but they are mere allegations at this point.
Has there been any attempts recently to talk to Rex or his lawyers and say, hey, look, can you just tell us who you killed?
So I am represented by competent counsel. I cannot ethically reach out to the defendant, so I wouldn't. And even if I was inclined, I cannot. So we'll speak through his attorney. And, you know, there's in any case, you know, there's always a dialogue between the defense and the prosecution, or at least there should be. And, you know, a myriad of topics are discussed on a daily basis, which should remain private between the parties.
Has any of the evidence that you found so far indicated that you might have another suspect question, either someone who was with him or a family member or someone on your radar?
So if you look at the evidence in this case, and you know, it points that the defendant acted alone, and then if you look at that planning document, that makes it even more apparent that this was the 6 charged cases were meticulously planned, and they were done at a time when the defendant knew he would have both access to the victims and other people would not be around. Okay. I believe one of the victims are going to speak, so we're going to give the victim, some of the victims, whoever likes to speak, the opportunity to do that. Thank you very much.
This has been breaking news.
Oh my God, you guys. What the hell? Give me 2 seconds. I'm printing off the documents. I'm old school. Give me 2 seconds. I'm running out of ink. Oh, Lord. Okay, guys, I'm sorry for the delay here. Alrighty, so Supreme Court of Suffolk County, State of New York, the people of the State of New York against Rex A. Heuermann. The indictment number 71635-4. So this also goes through the ones that we already know about. I'm running out of ink. All right, so on July 14th, 2023, defendant Rex A. Heuermann was charged by a grand jury in the following 6 counts, which have been incorporated in Suffolk County Indictment number 71889-23. M in the first degree in violation of New York State Penal Section A1, Class A1 felony for the death of Melissa Bartholomew on or about July 10th, 2023. M in the first degree, Class A1 felony for the death of Megan Waterman on around June 6, 2010. M in the first degree, A1 violent felony for the death of Amber Costello on or about September 2nd, 2010. M in the second degree in violation of New York Penal Code, an A1 felony for the death of Melissa Bartholomew on or about June 10th, 2019. M in the second degree in violation of New York State Penal Law, a Class A1 felony for the death of Megan Waterman on or around June 6th. Let me get rid of that. Oh, Lordy, 2010. M in the second degree. What am I doing here? Okay, guys, we got some news on Shauna. Michonne just messaged me. She said that she has talked to her. She is being taken care of. And she's on IV antibiotics, and she sounded good. So that is that update, guys. Okay. Hopefully those that needed to know, did you guys? Oh, I'm running out of ink. No. Oh, shite. Okay, so I will get back into this. Sorry, guys. So, M in the first degree in violation of New York State penal law, a Class A1 felony for the death of Amber Costello on or about September 2nd, 2010. So, on January 16th, 2024, defendant Rex A. Heuermann was charged by the grand jury in superseding indictment, which incorporated not only the above counts, but the additional charges of M in the second degree, a Class A1 felony for the death of Maureen Brainerd Barnes on or about July 9, 2007. Okay. So let's go. Murder and M in the second degree in violation of New York State penal law, a Class A1 felony for the death of Jessica Taylor on or about or between July 21st through July 26, 2003. M in the second degree in violation of New York State penal law, a Class A1 felony for the death of Sandra Castilla on or about and in between November 19th and 20th, 1993. The people filed a written bail application at Rex A. Heuermann's initial arraignment, which occurred on July 14th, 2013, as well as defendant's arraignment on the initial superseding indictment, which occurred on January 16th, 2024. Those applications are annexed hereto as Exhibit A. On July 14th, 2023, the Honorable Richard Ambro ordered that defendant Rex A. Heuermann be remanded without bail. The matter was subsequently adjourned to August 1st, 2023, before Honorable Timothy P. Mazzei on August 1st, 2023. In the ensuing appearances that have followed, this court has continued to remand the defendant without bail. Okay, I don't know how many of those, but oh lordy. I thought I was done with the sound behind me. Sorry, guys. So set forth below is the people's bail application in support of new superseding indictment, which will expand on additional evidentiary developments in the investigation, now charging defendant Heuermann with the 2 M's of additional victim, Jessica Taylor and Sandra Castilla. Now, Sandra Castilla is a new name. So based on defendant Heuermann's indictment on additional M charges as it pertains to now 5th and 6th victim, the serious and heinous nature of these serial M's, the planning and forethought that went into these crimes, the strength of the people's case, and the length of incarceration. I can't stop this sound, you guys. I'm sorry. So the length of incarceration depends upon conviction, the extended period of time that this defendant was able to avoid apprehension, and the remaining facts set forth herein and contained within Exhibit A, the people remain steadfast that only means to ensure defendant Rex A. Heuermann return to court is to remand him without bail. So I'm going to say trigger warning. I am expecting this to be a little yucky, to put it mildly. So if you have sensitivity to, if you're easily triggered, please do. This is probably your time to back out. I don't want to be the cause of anybody's mental health issues. I don't want to hurt anybody. Okay, so I will chat with everybody. I'm thinking about our friend as soon as the stream is over, but it does sound like there's been some kind of contact. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Okay. So the 2003 and 2011 discovery of human remains of Jessica Taylor. On or about July 26, 2003, an individual whose identity is known to law enforcement, hereafter witness one, was walking his or her dog just west of Halsey Manor Road in Manorville, Suffolk County, New York. At that time, witness one observed what appeared to be human remains, which prompted him/her to call 911. Upon arrival, members of the SCPD observed the remains of a female, later identified as Jessica Taylor. Miss Taylor was found on her back with her legs bent underneath her. Notably, the victim was missing the head and arms, had been severed from her body below her elbows. Moreover, a tattoo of the victim's torso had been severely obliterated by a sharp object. Investigators believe the mutilation of the victim's tattoo, the taking of the head and arms, were acts perpetrated by Rex A. Heuermann, inter alia, in the identification of victim via facial recognition, fingerprints, and or tattoo identification. During the initial investigation in Manorville in 2003, the victim's heads, arms, and hands were not found at the scene, and their location remained unknown to law enforcement for approximately 8 years. On March 29, 2011, Miss Taylor's skull, hands, forearms were discovered along Ocean Parkway, just east of Gilgo Beach, Suffolk County, New York. Notably, Miss Taylor's remains were located on the same side of the road from where Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello, hereinafter, and these are who we know as the Gilgo Four, right? So they had been found just several months prior in December 2010. Each of the Gilgo Four victims, as well as the skull, hands, and forearms of Miss Taylor, were recovered on the same side of the road at a depth of within 50 feet from the edge of the parkway. What? Furthermore, Miss Taylor's remains were located less than a mile from where the Gilgo Four were discovered. Hereafter, space is left intentionally black. Okay. Okay, so we have Jessica Taylor over here, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, Amber Costello. And we know that there is 5 more unresolved throughout the rest of Gilgo Beach here. Information relevant to the disappearance of Jessica Taylor. How are you guys doing? Okay, everyone's doing good. So information relevant to the disappearance of Jessica Taylor. Jessica Taylor was last seen on or about July 19th, 2003 in New York City. The investigation to date has established that in July 2003, Miss Taylor was working as a worker in the area of Midtown Manhattan, which is where most of his victims were found. He found most of them in that very small area, and you would see his phone in tandem with victims. On July 21st, 2003, at approximately 8:41 p.m., Miss Taylor utilized her cellular phone, hereinafter called Taylor phone, to speak to her mother. Based on witness interviews, analysis of telephone records, the Gilgo task force has learned that the two spoke for approximately 7 minutes. During that call, Miss Taylor had arranged to visit her mother on July 25th, 2003 in Poughkeepsie, New York for her mom's birthday. Less than 2 hours later, at approximately 10:22 p.m., the Taylor phone placed an outgoing call which lasted approximately 2 minutes. Thereafter, the Taylor phone records reveal no further outgoing calls or accepted incoming calls. On or about July 25th, 2003, when her daughter failed to arrive at her Poughkeepsie residence or answer any phone calls, Miss Taylor's mother notified law enforcement. At the time of Miss Taylor's disappearance, Rex A. Heuermann worked in the same vicinity as where Miss Taylor was known to street walk. Records seized during the execution of prior search warrants reveal Heuermann was in fact in Midtown Manhattan on July 21st, 2023, the same date Miss Taylor disappeared. On July 26, 2003, in the days thereafter, members of the SCPD canvassed the area around Halsey Manor Road in Manorville, in the vicinity of where Miss Taylor's remains had been found. As a result, investigators spoke to a witness who had on July 25th, 2023, at approximately 10:30 p.m., observed a dark-colored Chevrolet pickup truck backed into the same wooded area where Miss Taylor's body was later found. Based on their investigation, law enforcement determined that these observations would have occurred approximately 13 hours before witness one's 911 call. Notably, the investigation to date has established that defendant Heuermann purchased a 2002 dark-colored Chevrolet Avalanche pickup on or about March 22nd, 2002, from Ramp Chevrolet in Port Jefferson Station, New York. Accordingly, on July 25th, 2003, at 10:30 p.m., defendant Heuermann would have been in possession of a vehicle matching the description of the one observed in the vicinity of where Miss Taylor's remains had been found on Halsey Manor Road. I need to hydrate a hair. Wow, guys. Just wow. A forensic analysis of Rex Heuermann's digital devices also revealed the following. 1, that on or about July 28, 2003, Rex A. Heuermann accessed a Newsday article entitled Cops seek help in IDing Manorville body regarding the discovery of Miss Taylor's human remains. That online activity subsequently deleted. And 2, on or about July 29th, 2003, Rex A. Heuermann conducted an internet search for a new Chevrolet Avalanche, despite his 2002 Avalanche being just over 1 year old. The analysis further shows Heuermann also attempted to lead this search for a new vehicle. Notably, this activity occurred just days after Miss Taylor was discovered and just days after a witness observed a vehicle matching the physical description of Heuermann's leaving the scene. What do we got here? 2003 Chevrolet Avalanche 5 Drew Creek cab, available in blue at $40,000. July 29th, 2003. The stuff is deleted. And it looks like they've got this all from, so it's temporary internet files. No name, Windows, it looks like they were found, this was found in some of his tech. Finally, while the make and model of the vehicle Heuermann searched for is the same as the 2002 vehicle, Chevrolet Avalanche pickup truck, the exterior is a different color. Arrival blue. So they did say that up here. Arrival blue. 8-cylinder. Why would you do that, Rex? Why? So, as well as another in Summit White, which are significantly brighter interior paint offered by Chevrolet when compared to Rex Heuermann's dark green 2002 Chevrolet Avalanche. So he's just bought the same truck, different color. Hairs recovered from the remains of Jessica Taylor. During the course of this investigation, Miss Taylor's body was examined by a forensic scientist with the Suffolk County Laboratory, which revealed that Miss Taylor had been head removed as well as her arms below her elbows, and revealed irregular disruption of the victim's nipples and obliteration of her tattoo. During the examination of Miss Taylor's body, a male hair was recovered, specifically from a surgical drape that had been underneath the victim. Hereinafter, male hair underneath Taylor. A subsequent examination of the male hair underneath Taylor led to the determination it was a human head hair with Caucasian European characteristics. However, it was based on the DNA testing capabilities at the SCCL, unsuitable for further DNA testing at that time. On or about August 24th, 2023, the Gilgo Task Force brought a cutting of the male hair underneath Taylor to an outside forensic laboratory, previously referred to in Exhibit A as Forensic Laboratory Number 2, which specializes in forensic mitochondrial analysis. On or about February 1st, 2024, Forensic Laboratory Number 2 issued a report concluding that the mitochondrial DNA profile developed from the male hair underneath Taylor and the profile developed by a buccal swab are the same, specifically at a rate as per the EMPOP database, exclude 99.96 of North American population as a contributor of said hair. So his hair was on this draping. Oh, not so smart. Well, 99.96 of the North American population can be excluded as a contributor of the male hair underneath Taylor, defendant Heuermann cannot be excluded as the contributor of said hair recovered underneath the remains of Jessica Taylor. On or about March 8, 2024, the Gilgo Task Force brought a cutting of the male hair underneath Taylor and a DNA extract of Rex A. Heuermann's buccal swab to an outside. Let's see. Irregular disruption of the girl's nipples did not occur naturally, and one possible cause of the disruption is the post-mortem mutilation of the victim's nipples. In shorthand, EMPOP stands for European DNA Profile Group, EDNAP, Mitochondrial DNA Population Database. Okay. So that hair was taken to Exhibit A, Forensic Laboratory number 1, was taken to an independent laboratory, which applies DNA techniques and direct genome sequencing in difficult-to-solve forensic casework and the identification of human remains. On or about April 29, 2024, Forensic Laboratory number 1 issued a report indicating it had developed nuclear DNA profile for not only the male hair underneath Taylor, but also from Rex A. Heuermann's buccal swab. Forensic Laboratory number 1 was then able to conduct a one-on-one autosomal nuclear DNA comparison between said profile developed from the male hair underneath Taylor to Rex Heuermann's NSP genotype file developed from the buccal swab, which resulted in the conclusion that the DNA profile generated from the male hair underneath Taylor is 1.837 times 10 at 603 times more likely to have come from the person genetically identical to Heuermann's SNP genotype file than from an unrelated individual. So both hairs come back, to my understanding, straight to Rex. Based on the foregoing, it is significant that 2 forensic laboratories have now independently determined that the aforementioned hair recovered from the surgical drape underneath the remains of Jessica Taylor are subsequently more likely to have derived from a person genetically identical to defendant Heuermann's mitochondrial and nuclear profiles, which further provides support that Rex A. Heuermann, dismembered, took off parts, and transported the remains of Jessica Taylor to Manorville and Gilgo Beach until the victim's remains were ultimately discovered on July 2003 and March 2011, respectively. Heuermann's family travel in relation to the disappearance of Jessica Taylor. You guys. Oh, Lordy. Are you guys seeing this okay, or am I in the way? I'm in the way. So as part of the ongoing investigation, the Gilgo Task Force has also established that Heuermann's wife and children were out of state at the time of Miss Taylor's disappearance. And a consistent theme attributable to the defendant for each of the charged homicides thus far, which would have only allowed the defendant unfettered time and opportunity to execute these crimes. Specifically, in 2002-2003, defendant Heuermann's daughter Victoria was a kindergarten student at the McKenna Elementary School, located in Massapequa Park, New York. At the time, Victoria was classmates with an individual whose identity is known to law enforcement here and after witness 2. Based on post-arrest interviews with witness, including witnesses 2's family and Victoria Heuermann, the Gilgo task force has learned that at the conclusion of kindergarten school year, Miss Ellerup and her 2 children vacationed with witness 2's family from or on about July 20th, 2003 through on or about July 27th, 2003 at Smuggler's Notch Resort, which is located in Jefferson, Vermont, I think. Rex Heuermann, of course, did not attend this trip. The witness accounts have been corroborated via telephone records and electronic data seized during the execution of the July 2023 search warrants. For example, agents of the Gilgo task force seized AT&T records, which detail calls made from Heuermann's residence in 2023. See embedded excerpt on the following page. These records show that during the aforementioned family vacation, the landline telephone associated with Heuermann's residence, which was located at 105 Fifth Avenue, Massapequa Park, New York, hereinafter Target residence, made several phone calls to a telephone number bearing an 802 area code. Further investigation tied this phone number to Smuggler's Notch Resort. Thus, investigators believe Heuermann made these calls from Target residence in Massapequa Park to his family staying in Jefferson, Vermont. So it's looking like he spent about $108 on calls, July 11th through August 10th. And this gives the numbers dialed. So this would be the ones here that are to his family in Vermont. The Gilgo Task Force also seized phone records attributable to Heuermann's Manhattan business, RH Consultants and Associates. These records further corroborate Heuermann's stay in New York and the family's travels to Jefferson, Vermont, as Heuermann's work landline makes numerous calls during the same week of July 20 through July 27, 2003, from Manhattan to Smuggler's Notch Resort. And here we've got okay, and that's here from Jefferson to Jefferson from the work phone. Finally, in July 20th, the Homicide Task Force seized a hard drive from the basement of Target residence. The extraction and analysis of that hard drive revealed it contained a Palm Pilot backup file, which appeared to contain defendant Heuermann's date book or calendar for relevant dates. The Gilgo Task Force subsequently hired a digital forensic expert who, by utilizing native Palm software, were able to convert the above data into a readable format. So again, this gives us all the calls that he made starting on this July 20th, all to smugglers. Based on the foregoing, investigation to date has clearly established defendant Heuermann's wife and children were indeed located out of state during the time of Jessica Taylor's disappearance, which occurred on or about July 21st, 2003. Accordingly, the M's of all four of all 4 charged victims, and now the M of Miss Taylor occurred at times when the defendant, Rex Heuermann's wife and children, were out of state, which would allow defendant Heuermann unfettered time to execute his plans for Miss Taylor, which included taking of parts and transportation of her remains without any fear of his family uncovering or learning of his involvement with these crimes. So they really are not associating Asa with any of this at this point, you know, and I'm thinking that they would want to charge them. They would want to charge her if they actually believed she had anything to do with this. So as much as we're finding it hard to believe she didn't know what was going on, and hey, she may have known or found out after the fact, it is really looking like she was not there at the time. They said in a presser that the info they've discovered excluded Asa taking any part of these crimes. That's exactly what I'm understanding. Okay, so the 1993 discovery of the human remains of Sandra Castilla. So this is a name that is new to us. I had never heard of Sandra Castilla until we got this presser. Give me 2 seconds. The girls are having a fit. They're going to start barking if they don't get the cookie. Okay, ladies, you sit down. We got serious talk here. There you go. So on or about November 20th, 1993, 2 individuals, while hunting in a wooded area of Southampton in the vicinity of Fishty, we're going to want these addresses. Old Fish Cove Road, North Sea, Suffolk County, New York, discovered the remains of Sandra Castilla, born on August 25th, 1965. The victim, who had been 28 years old at the time, was lying on her back with her arms outstretched over her head, with her uncovered legs. The victim's shirt had been pulled up over the torso and her head, exposing the victim's stuff. The victim had numerous sharp force injuries: her face, torso, breasts, left thigh, and private area. This man, I mean, he is beyond twisted, you guys. He is beyond twisted. It is really sounding like he would get his victims, hold on to them for a while, and do these terrible things. Miss Castilla was a native of Trinidad and Tobago, but had been living in New York prior to a disappearance and of her hair recovered from the remains of Sandra Castilla. During the course of the 1993 investigation, Miss Castilla's body was examined by a forensic scientist with the SCCL, which led to the recovery of 3 hairs from the victim's remains: one of the victim's right arms, hereinafter female hair on Castilla; one from a tape lift of the striped shirt above the victim's head, hereinafter male hair on Castilla; as well as one from a tape lift of the white shirt above the victim's head, hereafter identified female hair on Castilla. Collectively, hairs on Castilla. In 2014, well before the identification of Rex Heuermann as a suspect in Miss Castilla's M, the hairs on Castilla were sent to Forensic Laboratory number 2, which was able to develop unique mitochondrial DNA profiles for each of the hairs on Castilla on or about August 1st, 2014. Forensic Laboratory number 2 received an extract of John Bitroff's buccal swab. Isn't that interesting? Because we know he was working in that area. So Forensic Laboratory number 2 was then able to develop mitochondrial DNA profile from John Bitroff's buccal swab and subsequently compared it to the mitochondrial DNA profiles that had been previously generated for each of the hairs on Castilla. And the conclusion of the analysis, Forensic Laboratory number 2 was able to exclude, very important, exclude, that's what we needed, John Bitroff and his maternal relatives as contributors to the hairs on Castilla. Recently, the Gilgo Homicide Task Force requested Forensic Laboratory number 2 to undergo forensic testing, specifically compared mitochondrial DNA profiles for each of the hairs on Castilla, which had been developed back in 2014 prior to Heuermann emerging as a suspect in Miss Castilla's M. To known examples provided to the Gilgo Task Force on or about February 29th, 2024, Forensic Laboratory number 2 issued a report concluding that the mitochondrial DNA profile developed from the male hair on Castilla and the profile from defendant's buccal swab are the same. So we can eliminate Bitroff now. We can eliminate him. So specifically at a rate that would, as per EMPOP database, exclude 99.96 of North American population as a contributor of the aforementioned hair recovered on mutilated remains of Sandra Castilla. What the mofo was he doing? Based on the foregoing, while 99.96 of North American population can be excluded as a contributor of the hair on Castilla, defendant Heuermann cannot be excluded. Prior to Miss Castilla's disappearance and M, defendant Heuermann had been living with a female individual. Yeah, this is what we're just learning. What? So, had been living with a female individual whose identity is known to law enforcement, hereinafter witness 3. Okay. During the course of the investigation, the Gilgo Task Force was able to secure a buccal swab from witness 3, which was secured via her consent on about March 29th, 2024. The Gilgo Task Force brought a DNA extract of witness 3's buccal swab to Forensic Laboratory number 2 for further analysis. On or about May 8th, 2024, Forensic Laboratory number 2 issued a report concluding that the mitochondrial DNA profile developed from witness 3's buccal swab and the profile developed from the female hair on Castilla shared a common base at all compared positions, specifically at a rate that would, as per the EMPOP database, exclude 99.98% of the North American population as the contributors of said hair recovered on the remains of Sandra Castilla. Meanwhile, 99.98% of the North American population can be excluded as the contributor of female hair on Castilla, witness 3, who had but no longer resided at target residence prior to Ms. Castilla's disappearance and cannot be excluded as the contributor of said hair recovered on Miss Castilla. So is this witness a separate witness? Then the person that they went on holidays with, is this another person? I'm a little confused as to who witness 3 could be. On or about March 8th, 2024, the Gilgo Task Force brought a cutting of the hairs on Castilla, as well as DNA extracted of witness 3's buccal swab to forensic laboratory number 1 for further independent analysis. On or about April 29th, 2024, forensic laboratory number 1 issued a report indicating its ability to develop a nuclear DNA profile for the male hair on Castilla. Forensic laboratory number 1 was then able to conduct a 1-to-1, autosomal nuclear, I don't know how to say that, autosomal nuclear DNA comparison between said profile, development from male hair on Castilla to Rex A. Heuermann, SNP genotype file, developed from his buccal swab, which resulted in a conclusion that the DNA profile generated from the male hair on Castilla, which was recovered from Miss Castilla's destroyed remains. I don't know, guys. Jesus. So it is 4.347 times 10 by 332 times more likely to have come from a person genetically identical to frickin' Heuermann's SNP genotype file than from an unrelated individual. Forensic laboratory number 1 was also able to generate nuclear DNA profiles not only from extract of witness 3's buccal swab, but also the female hair on Castilla. Forensic laboratory 1 was then able to conduct a 1-on-1 autosomal nuclear DNA genotype file developed from female hair on Castilla, which resulted in a conclusion that the DNA profile generated from the female hair on Castilla is 4.578 times 10 by 1040 times more likely to have come from a person genetically identical to witness 3's SNP genotype file than from an unrelated individual. Who has witness 3, you guys? Who's witness 3? Based on the foregoing, it is significant that 2 forensic laboratories have now independently determined that male hair recovered from the destroyed remains, just this guy, of Sandra Castilla is subsequently more likely to have derived from a person genetically identical to defendant Heuermann's mitochondrial and nuclear profiles. Additionally, both laboratories were also able to forensically tie witness 3, who had resided at target residence prior to Miss Castilla's disappearance, and M, to the female hair recovered on Miss Castilla's remains. The foregoing provides further support that Rex A. Heuermann this aimed and transported the body of Sandra Castilla to Southampton. The chart below summarizes the results from forensic laboratory number 1 and forensic laboratory number 2, which each individually have been determined that hairs recovered on now 5 of the 6 charged victims are forensically tied to defendant Heuermann, members of his immediate family, or individuals whom Heuermann resided, lending further support to the conclusion that defendant Heuermann is the individual who emmed, stripped, restrained, transported the remains of Jessica Taylor and Sandra Castilla, as well as the Gilgo 4, until they were each discovered in 1993, 2003, 2010, and 2011. Okay, so this gives us a chart of basically what we just went over. It puts it in a document that is a little bit easier to understand. Okay, so Heuermann's unfettered access to target residence during the disappearance NM of Miss Sandra Castilla. How you guys doing over here? I can't see chat while I'm over there, so I hope everyone's doing well. Let's see here. You guys doing all right? Yeah, Mel, he very much could have got Shannon Gilbert. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them still along Gilgo Beach that still have not been identified, or they have not found out exactly what has happened to them, including an Asian male dressed as a woman and a little girl, a toddler, that is Peach's daughter. You're good, Carrie? All right. All righty. I'm going to do this. I'm gooder, we then good? Congratulations, Mel. That's awesome. That is totally awesome. Good on you, friend. So, as noted, Supra, based on post-arrest interviews with the witness, the Gilgo task forces learned that witness 3 and defendant Heuermann began living together at target residence in 1991. What? Does this make any sense to you guys? What do you mean they began living together? What does that mean? In September 1993, approximately 2 months before Miss Castilla's disappearance in M, witness 3 moved out of target residence. Who's witness 3? This is just something's up here. Began living together. That sounds like a couple, the way it's worded. Okay, then. So this is interesting, too. In September 1993, approximately 2 months before Miss Castilla's disappearance in M, witness 3 moved out of target residence. Prior to witness 3 leaving target residence, Heuermann's mother had moved out. So are you telling me that his mother was also living in that house when some of this was going on? Heuermann's mother also lives very close to Route 29. Now, there is a bunch of people that have been found along there as well that could very much fit into Rex Heuermann's, what would you say, into his orbit. So based on foregoing, neither Heuermann's mother nor witness 3 were living at target residence during the time of Sandra Castilla's M. Accordingly, the M's of all 4 charged victims, and now the M's of Miss Taylor and Miss Castilla, occurred at times when defendant Heuermann would have unfettered time to execute his plan for each victim without any fear that his family or others residing at target residence would uncover or learn of his involvement of these crimes. So this is, let's get into this. Newly discovered digital evidence. As detailed in Exhibit A, following Heuermann's arrest, numerous search warrants were executed at target residence, which culminated in, inter alia, the seizure of over 350 electronic devices. In the months subsequent to Heuermann's arrest, the Gilgo task force has attempted to extract and analyze data from each of these devices. An analysis of these devices has revealed Heuermann's significant collection of violent, oh lordy, So these are the reasons we're looking back at some of this stuff. So it had all sorts of things I cannot say on them, dating back to 1994. The P images accessed by Heuermann include, but are not limited to, a bunch of things I can't say. Are you freaking kidding me? So it sounds like attacked the female organs, object penetration, sex with headless women, bondage, whipping, and largely coincide with how the remains of Sandra Castilla and Jessica Taylor and Valerie Mack were discovered. What a sick mofo. We're looking at another BTK, guys. We are looking at another BTK. Oh, Chopper. This isn't good stuff. This is horrifying stuff that's coming out. This is just absolutely freaking horrifying. So moreover, during the analysis of a hard drive recovered from basement of Heuermann's residence, the Gilgo task force recently discovered a Microsoft Word document entitled HK 2002-2004. The document was discovered in an unallocated space. Allocated space refers to stored data that the computer is using. Files are then viewable and able to be opened by a user. On the other hand, unallocated space refers to available or unconstructed data, which is not readily viewable and able to be opened by a user. Unallocated space frequently contains room for new data or old data that has been deleted, sent to the recycle bin, or overwritten, etc. For example, when a user deletes data, many users believe the file has been purged forever. However, deleting a file only tells the computer that the space previously occupied by that file is now available. The deleted data will remain in unallocated space until another file is written over it. Data contained within unallocated space can be retrieved via a computer forensic extraction method called file carving. Okay, file carving. Have you guys ever heard of that? You know, we got some people that are pretty good with their tech. Have you ever heard of file carving? Yeah, they have. They've said that through what they found so far, there is no connection. They're actually saying that Asa was nobody was in the same home as Rex when these things happened. You have to remember, we found this out at the beginning. Asa was into going to those Comic-Con, so Comic-Con all over the US. She was frequently gone from the home. Oh, la. A forensic analysis of HK 2002-04 document reveals that it was not only locally created, a draft, i.e. not downloaded from the internet, but also recovered from a hard drive that indicates it was utilized by Heuermann himself. While the original, there we are, the original document appears to have been created in 2000 based on its original title, HK 2000 to 2000, or sorry, -03. This iteration of the Word document titled HK 2002-04 appears to have been created and modified between 2001 and 2002. Based on the foregoing facts set forth infra, the task force members believe 2000 or 2002 to be referenced to calendar years. The task force members also believe, based on foregoing and facts set forth, infra, the Microsoft document to be planning document. So it looks like this is where he was writing out or typing out his plans for future victims, utilized by Heuermann to methodically blueprint out his plans or his deletings. So this is herein referred to as HK planning document. HK planning document begins with a 4-category section with the underlined headings of problems, supplies, DS, and TRG. So I'm assuming DS, what, a dumpster site. Okay. TRG. T1, Megan, question mark. He says small is good. T-UNK black. So on this document it says problems. Now I'm assuming these are going to be his problems, right? DNA, tire marks, red stains, fingerprints, MO, plastic bag / cat litter, witness, trace source of supplies, foot or shoe prints, photos, misleaders. No, you behave. Police stop, truck stuck, fingerprints in gloves, plastic bags matched to box, hair and fiber. So supplies, booties, lye or acid, a police scanner, ropes and cord, saw, cutting tools and dumpster location. Oh, cutting tools, yeah. And dumpster locations, hair nets, photo film, a burn can, foam drain cleaner. Oh, really? Body wash wipes, tarps, drop cloths, medical gloves, bags and tape, large electric clips, a ratchet cargo strap. Now, if that isn't like a spooky frickin' find, are you kidding me? Based on the Gilgo Task Force training and experience, the members believe problems to be a guide on issues to avoid apprehension, supplies to be a reference to what supplies are needed to carry out, the Cheerio deletings to avoid apprehension, and to avoid leaving behind DNA evidence. The DS heading appears to be an acronym for dump site. That's what I was thinking. Dump site. Which is corroborated by inter alia, the discoveries of Valerie Mack and Jessica Taylor at 2 separate dump sites, i.e., in the vicinity of Mill Road and Ocean Parkway under the same heading. No altercations. Number 6. See embedded excerpt. No altercations other than the additional call-out boxes where applicable have been made to excerpts of HK planning document. The document is portrayed in the same manner that it was recovered from an unallocated space with no changes in formatting or spelling. So this is just something they printed off just like that. Really, Rex, really. Okay, so as a note regarding dump sites, task force believe, and how, which the task force members believe is a reference to how Heuermann disposed of physical evidence in the manner described. See dispose of the following. TRG appears to be a reference to target victim. It is important to note that the victims thus far are all petite women, which is consistent with the small is good entry of the document, leading further support to aforementioned conclusion that TRG refers to victims or targets. There we go. DS, dump site what? Dump site 1 Miller Road. Megan, small is good. With regards to the DS section of the document, it is important to note that the human remains of Jessica Taylor, discovered in 2003, as well as the remains of Valerie Mack, discovered in 2000, were dumped in 2 locations. One of those locations being the vicinity of Mill Road, which is listed as DS Mill Road. On March 29, 2011, Miss Taylor's torso, skull, and hands recovered near Ocean Parkway, i.e. second dump site on April 4, 2011. Miss Mack's skull, hands, and right foot were also discovered near Ocean Parkway, also a second dump site. The recent discovery of this document prompted, okay, this is what we were wondering, prompted the April 2004 cadaver search in the Manorville area that did not recover additional sets of remains. So we were wondering what was going on in Manorville. So it looks like they are getting this from extracts of different tech, different hard drives, thumb drives, his computers. So let's see here, prompted the April 2024 cadaver search of the Manorville area, thereby reinforcing the task force members' belief that HG planning document refers to Heuermann's preparation for either Jessica Taylor or Valerie Mack. The HK planning document on Heuermann's computer then delves into a 3-category section, headings of pre-prep, P-rep, and post-event. What a sick mofo. Pre-prep, vehicle inspection, engaged T1, recon, dump site 1, locate dump site 2, get a weather report, recon video cameras, and recon pick zone for vid cams. Prep, set up stage, a holding area, a build table, crossbar, and a hard point. Post-event, destroy, file, change tires, burn glove, dispose of pics, have story set. You guys, good frickin' Lord, man. I'm just going to take these really fast. Sorry. I want some of these. Okay, so the Gilgo Homicide Task Force members believe pre-prep to be a guide on steps to take in advance of the deletings, i.e. in vehicle inspection, engaging with the target, conducting a recon, or survey of video surveillance cameras in pertinent areas, including pickup zone. and checking the weather to ensure for optimal conditions. PREP, on the other hand, appears to be reference to steps taken closer to the time in the homicide, i.e., setting up the staging area, holding area, and table, crossbar, hardpoint for the victim. Oh my goodness. So specifically, the PREP section has 5 entries: setup, stage, holding area, build table, crossbar, and hardpoint. The Gilgo task force members are aware that crossbar is often placed underneath tables to provide further structural support for heavier objects being placed on a table. Additionally, the task force members are also aware that a hardpoint refers to the field of suspension ondage. Do I say it that way? Ondage. To a fixed attachment point in the ceiling that supports the weight of an individual suspended off ground, which is corroborated by Heuermann's significant interest in P, where the subject is either suspended, orchard, bound to a table, head taken, and upper chest on girls is destroyed, which is consistent with the foregoing notations regarding suspension as well as the condition of the vehicles described herein. Additionally, post-event appears to reference a checklist of tasks followed by the event or homicide to avoid apprehension. Change tires, burn gloves, dispose of pics taken of the victim, and have a story set. The HP planning document continues to further expound on preparatory measures such as recon steps, see recon reports, and takedown pickups section embedded below. The steps to inhibit victim identification and avoid leaving behind DNA evidence. Oh, this man. So recon reports. 1, video cams on Lie, route 112 to route, so I'm at RT 112 to RT 113 equals 33 old. 2 vid cams on SS, I'm going to say Parkway. I do believe that means route 231 to exit 30 equals 10 old. 3 T-1 info and cell phone. Gives a number, beep voicemail, and that says old. Takedown / pickup. Hunt too long, seen an area too long. Remember, don't charge gas. And recon for vid cams in pickup area next time. So that means he didn't do that at one point. Body prep. Wash body inside and all cavities. Remove trace evidence, fingerprints and hair. Remove trace DNA. Remove ID marks, tattoos and marks. Remove marks from orchard. Remove head and hands and package for transport. This frickin' guy, man. He's like BTK, guys. He's as bad as BTK. Dispose of the following tools and devices: T-1 clothes and personal items, drop cloths, wipes and towels, props, toys, and wood items, anything that touched T-1, what you wore, destroy book and computer files, burn gloves, dispose of box of plastic bass to avoid trace. Yeah, I mean, how long did he have these women? It was more than I was assuming. I don't know why. I never really thought he would be taking them home. I thought maybe there would be trophies there or pictures and what have you, but it's sounding through the press conference we just watched. It's telling me that he had these women for at least a couple of days at the least. So body prep section above includes a note to remove head and hands, which clearly relates to the condition of Jessica Taylor and Valerie Mack's remains, as both victims were taken apart at their elbows, at their arms, below the elbows. Additionally, each of the victims' remains, as well as remains of the Gilgo Four, were indeed packaged for transport. As this section indicates, to do further increasing the significance of the document's presence on Heuermann's. Okay, so this came off the laptop. And I mean, if he was this sloppy that he's leaving stuff on his laptop, can you imagine what they're finding, guys? Finally, this section also includes a note to remove ID marks, tattoos. As noted, supra, the examination of Miss Taylor's body in July of 2003 indicates numerous sharp linear injuries to the victim's skin, specifically around where Taylor's tattoo had been located, which investigators believe was intended to inhibit the identification of Miss Taylor's tattoo and therefore Miss Taylor in a manner consistent with HK planning document. Furthermore, dispose of the following. Section lists destroy computer files as a checklist item. This presence of this HK planning document in unallocated space demonstrate Heuermann's efforts to destroy or delete computer files in a manner that is consistent with this notation as set forth in Exhibit A. A consistent theme of Heuermann's computer activities is the use of forensic wiping software, inter alia, in a matter that is consistent with the notation in the HK planning document. In the Things to Remember section, there are notes indicating steps to take next time, i.e., consider a face or necks next time, or use a heavier rope for the as the light rope broke under stress from being tightened. Heuermann further opines on the importance of sleep to not avoid problems, but also to increase Heuermann as what Heuermann refers to as playtime. Playtime. You sick mofo. Now, if this isn't enough to keep his wife and kids away from contacting this man, I don't know what will. As set forth above and embedded here below, the Gilgo Task Force members believe these references to next time indicate Heuermann's prior experience and what changes to implement moving forward. Oh, and then there was so much that they had to say on top of this in that presser. Moreover, reference to Things to Remember section to utilize push pins to hang drop cloths from ceiling Here we are. And not tape, as well as manifesting concerns regarding sound travel indicates reference incidents that would have occurred indoors and most likely inside the target residence, which is a controlled environment the Heuermann would not only be familiar with, but also area where Heuermann would have access to said tools. Drop cloth would also serve the twin purpose of limiting the spread of forensic evidence, such as the red DNA, to a confined area, as well as a controlled sound travel, which would lead to more playtime, which is believed to be a reference to sexual ultimate acts perpetrated on the victims. Additionally, the Heuermann family vacationing out of state, defendant would have unfettered time and exclusive access to the target residence, allowing Heuermann ample opportunity to execute and clean up after these crimes. So what did they find that first time that they spent, 10 days? They spent a long time searching that house the first time. And I mean, they ripped it apart. So did they also bring in luminol and things like that? Did they find the red DNA and we're just not aware of it? I mean, they are going to keep things from us, right? There's going to be things that they are holding close to the vest. Finally, the HK planning document on Heuermann's laptop computer includes a notes section. Notes, spur of the moment, cover, Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome. The more you do, the more clues you give. Look at the painting. What, why, and who. Organized versus disorganized. Page 162, X substitution. Page 163 and page 175, taking apart, disorganized. So an investigation to date has established the source of these notes, i.e. the Mind Hunter paperback book, authored by John Douglas, specifically the first edition published in 1996, concerning the criminal profiling of serial killers. For example, the notes section of HK planning document includes the following notation. Page 162, X substitution, page 163. 162 of said book does indeed reference X substitution with an object, as Douglas describes the rather horrible taking apart and playing with oneself over the victim's body, but no actual X. The penetration with an umbrella and pen were acts. What? What? Oh, Lord, man. Page 163. Douglas opines that the perpetrator of such a crime, X substitution, would be disorganized, who would be compulsive and perhaps living with his parents. Accordingly, this notation contained in HK planning document is consistent with the aforementioned book in page number and subject matter. So John Douglas is a retired special agent and FBI profiler who spent over 25 years in the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit. During this time with the FBI, Douglas interviewed over a dozen Cheerios and other violent habitual offenders, which led to numerous publications, including the Mindhunter book. The notes section of AK planning document also includes the following notation. In page 175 in the first edition Mindhunter, book, Douglas describes a woman's screaming, and shortly thereafter how a woman's had been cut and then cut up. For crying out loud. Like it's bad when a human is doing things so vile that you're not even allowed to speak the words. Douglas further assists on page 175 of said book that taking apart is a sign of disorganized personality type. Accordingly, this notation contained on HK planning document is again consistent with aforementioned book and in page number and subject matter. The note section taken of the HK planning document also contains this following notation. Look at the painting. What, why, and who? On page 19 of said book, Douglas notes while he was still at the FBI, he always advised his agents, if you want to understand the artist or the perpetrator, you have to look at the painting or the victim. We've looked at the paintings over the years and talked extensively to most accomplished artists. Accordingly, the note above contained in Heuermann's laptop computer to look at the paintings yet again points to the aforementioned book as a source of Heuermann's commentary. Finally, the other notations contained in HK planning documents, spur of the moment, cover, Stockholm Syndrome, the more you do, the more clues you give, are also each contained in said book, all to it pointing as the source of Heuermann's notations. Stockholm Syndrome is a psychological condition that explains why victims or hostages can sometimes develop a psychological bond or empathy for their captor or abuser. The foregoing is corroborated in part by Heuermann's possession of another Cheerio book authored by John Douglas. During the initial search warrant execution in July 2023 at the target residence, the task force observed that Heuermann possessed in his home office. I was looking for the name of that book. During the initial search warrant executed July 2023 at target residence, the task force observed that Heuermann possessed in his office the book entitled The Cases That Haunt Us, which outlines the facts, evidence, and victimology of several notable serial murders. I'm going to be digging for these guys. I want these books. The Gilgo Task Force members believe that the totality of circumstances surrounding HK planning document, including Heuermann's attempt to delete its existence, points to it as Heuermann's self-education and homework on the topic of carrying out serial actual unalivings. Heuermann's pointed concerns regarding 1, avoiding being captured on video surveillance, 2, leaving behind forensic evidence, and 3, what applies to purchase, 4, how to package up remains for subsequent transportation to dump sites. Example, washing bodies inside and outside of cavities prior to packaging for transport. 5, avoiding a paper trail, tying him to crimes and or crime scenes. Example, remember, don't charge gas. 6, concerns regarding noise and or air travel, which could inhibit playtime. A sick mofo. 7, how to improve next time. Further confirm merely looking within the four corners of the documents itself. Its relevance in this regard, this belief is further corroborated when looking at the litany of external factors, including inter alia, how the six victims now attributed to Heuermann were indeed packaged and transported, and in case of Miss Taylor, how her heads, hands, and tattoo were removed or obliterated. Consistent with documents instructions. Furthermore, an analysis of Heuermann's computers confirmed that HK planning document was in unallocated space and had hence been deleted. It's a good thing he's dumb as shite. Which is consistent with not only destroy computer files notation, but also Heuermann's established use of forensic wiping software. He didn't do a great job. So, penalties if convicted of current charges, defendant R. Rex A. Heuermann faces multiple sentences of life without parole. What the hell? What the hell? Remand without bail is appropriate. Taking them out back is appropriate. I'm just gonna breathe for a second here, guys. I'm about to puke. What the hell is wrong with this man? Hola, guys, hola. Like, oh my God. Just be glad that this guy is dumb as shite and thinks he's smart. Because without that, we might have more of an uphill battle. Okay, so they're saying he should be reprimanded without bail. You figure? Based on the serious, heinous nature of these Emmings, the strength of the people's case, the life incarceration the defendant faces upon conviction, the extreme measures the defendant took to attempt to avoid apprehension for over a decade, the defendant's indictment on these additional charges, which now incorporate a fifth and sixth victim, there are more to come. I have zero doubt. The people remain steadfast that the only means to ensure the defendant's return to court is to remand the defendant without bail. I would say that's a good call. I believe that to be fact. Okay, I don't know that we've got anything else. Let me see if I can do this. Like, are you kidding me? So this is basically all the information that we've looked at. I'm just going to grab them. Oh, can you imagine? Things to remember. You know, I don't quite understand how the different laws work. I mean, you know, I'm from Canada. But why is there not first degree? I mean, why is this not first degree, you guys? What do you guys think? So do you think somewhere out there, we know that we have some things that are on his computer now. We know that this is what started this next search. But tell me, do you guys think there's a manifesto out there somewhere? Do you think he's got a manifesto? So what we learned through that, I've just got a couple notes. They found 422 hidden devices in that house. We know that Jessica Taylor was found in Manorville with parts found in a couple different places. Sandra Castilla is the new name, and she's a gal from Queens. And we also are learning that he used John Douglas, the author, former FBI profiler, has a couple books that Rex was using as ways to hide himself and these crimes. There's 2 books. The Cases That Haunt Us is the book he had. But it does look like it is the book Mindhunter that he seemed to be using almost as a guide how to hide himself and his actions. But he wasn't good at it. He thought he was good at it. He wasn't good at it. He wasn't smart enough to think ahead, think outside the box, Rex, because DNA is going to do nothing but get stronger and stronger and stronger. There'll be a point where they're going to be able to take DNA because someone sneezed on you. They probably could already, actually. Yep, you're exactly right, Dandy. We're going to get our socks blown off by the end of this. Look at all the devices they need to check. Oh, I bet the documents are out there now. I would say they're out there now. I mean, you can find anything. You can find anything. It blows me away. So, guys, that's going to be where I leave this. I hope that was informative for everybody. Had a little bit of a bumpy start trying to get everything together. But with that said, I really appreciate you guys being here with me. I think this is a very important case. Hopefully it's not going to end up with a judge like Seagull or Bev. And this is something that we can this bastard's got to go. So with that said, if you happen to be a new member, I will have it in the Discord, and it is running through the bottom on the ticker. So grab the address, the email address for our Discord, and we'll get you in there, and you can join all the discussions and movie night and everything that we do over on that platform. So guys, with that said, again, thank you again for spending your time with me. I really do appreciate it. And members, I'll meet you over in Discord, and everybody else, I'll see you soon in the next one. Bye.